Hello everyone, as Will was saying, my name is Dominic Sacco. I'm the editor of Esports News UK. I work as a consultant in the esports industry as well. Really delighted to be here today. I think we've got a fantastic panel across a real breadth of esports, and we're going to be talking about the way we work, the esports talent pipeline. Now, when I think of esports talent, I think of what we have in the UK, a lot of great commentators in esports. We have players as well, we have other talent. We're going to come on to all of that. But before we do, I'd like to ask the panel to introduce themselves. So if we'd like to go with you, starting Giulia, tell us a bit about yourself and what you're doing to support esports talent as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Giulia Zecchini. I'm the commercial strategy lead at FACEIT. What that entails is that I try and find brands that we can work with to really grow our offering. On the talent development side, part of what I do is, most of my background is actually in traditional sports, in Formula 1 and Premier League football. And I was working on talent development there, and so I wanted to apply that to what we're doing at FACEIT as well. I don't know if you guys know, but FACEIT has the FPL, which is obviously a very good talent sourcing and talent development platform that we have, but off the back of that, we really wanted to grow it. So earlier in the year, I brought on a partner to develop a new gaming academy. The partner is Gucci, and although I can't share everything that we're going to do because we're announcing it fully in a couple of months' time, it's a very exciting way to empower talent, but also make sure that they have very holistic support in their talent development as well.
Thank you. Danny?
Hey everyone, I'm Danny Lopez, Director of Marketing and Content at Tundra Esports. For those that haven't heard of Tundra, I believe we are the most exciting esports organisation to come out of the EU in the past few years, and this year is a very big year for us. I joined back in December, and a big part of my strategy that I've put together is making sure that people will have heard of our brand by the end of this year and going into next. And I'll be doing that through putting together a big roster of content creators, which is developing talent in that form, and making sure our pro players have their own brand as well for them to be able to succeed. And the third pillar for me is about shining a light on the people that work behind the brand as well, because I feel strongly that you've got to have your house in order, first of all, to be able to spread that through the rest of everything else. So, yeah.
Thank you, Danny. Shahneila?
Hi everyone, Shahneila Saeed. I'm Head of Education for Yuki, and I'm Director for the Digital Schoolhouse program. I guess in terms of background worth saying is, I used to be a teacher. I used to teach computer science in a London secondary school, did that for about 15 odd years, and then I left it to join Yuki and create Digital Schoolhouse. What am I doing in esports is, well, I brought esports to secondary schools and primary schools in this country. So in 2016, we launched secondary school esports tournament. And last year, we launched a primary school esports tournament. So now we have students from the ages of 8 to 18 participating in esports as part of their school education system.
Do you know what? I think, should we start with that, Shahneila? Because you've just concluded your latest finals at the Gfinity Arena the other day, and we had some winners. Was it Norton College, I believe, won a Smash Brothers tournament, so congratulations to them. But in terms of the esports talent pipeline and best practice there, I think, asking you, Shahneila, you're starting really at that grassroots level where the talent are coming through. They don't know their talent yet, maybe. What's that been like? Because you have, as part of your Digital Schoolhouse program, you have the players, but you also encourage commentators or shoutcasters to get involved, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal because, so for me, esports is an immersive careers education experience. That's why I do it. It's around, sometimes you need to experience something to really understand whether this is something that excites you and interests you. And not everybody's a talented public speaker that can engage a room full of 14-year-olds. We all have different skill sets. That skill set doesn't belong to everybody, right? So the best way to do it is to show children exactly what this stuff is and actually get them involved in that themselves. And that's where the esports tournament comes from. They do every part of it themselves. There's different leagues. There's the school tournament stage where they do this all in-house, and then they come towards the regional qualifiers and the semi-finals and the national grand final. And through each stage, there is careers advice built in. So the school receives job descriptions that I wrote actually with people within the esports industry, sat down and we wrote job descriptions for what a community manager role might look like, what team managers do, what event managers do, what's a tournament admin, production crew, shoutcaster. These job descriptions exist. All I did was use my teaching expertise and adapt the language to make sure that they worked in a school setting, because having in there that you need to create 3 new Twitter social accounts for an 11-year-old is probably not the most ethical thing to be done, right? So you have to make such minor tweaks, but it's about as close as you can get to industry practice. And then you connect with industry colleagues, so they get industry mentors, and they do all of this along the way. And with the junior tournament, the difference in the junior tournament is that it's actually part of lesson time. So every child gets to experience every role. They do this in a rota. So one week they are shoutcasting, and another week they're doing the production, and another week they're doing the marketing, and another week they're doing something else. And by the end of it, they really get to enjoy all of their things. So you find that sometimes students will start off thinking, oh, that shoutcasting thing looks cool, or that playing thing, I can't wait to get my hands on that game and play it. And by the end of it, the amount of students that just loved being the tournament admin was incredible. The amount of teachers that said the favorite role was tournament admin. And when we asked why, they're because they get to be really bossy. So it is wonderful and that's the key, because you're right, Dom, like students haven't figured out what they want to do. They don't know, and you can't aspire to a career that you don't know exists. So it's about giving them an equal flavor. We've had students that have come in to the semis and the grand finals and the regional qualifiers. We run the shoutcasting tournament alongside it. So as well as crowning the best team, we also crown the best shoutcaster of the tournament. And at every stage, there is the best caster of the day get selected, and they move on to the next stage of the tournament. And so at the early stage, at the first stage, like the regional qualifiers, it runs a bit like an open mic session. Like we have, anybody can cast at the regional qualifiers. And so we've had students that have come along as the team manager or as part of the production or just someone to spectate. And their friends have egged them on and gone, oh, you're quite good at talking. Go, you try. You know this game. And they've done it. And they've ended up being at the grand final, one of the finalist casters for the whole tournament. It's incredible, and what that does for their confidence and self-esteem, but I'm sure we'll come on to that later, but yeah, it's incredible.
I was going to say, I think it's fantastic, because in a way, as someone who's written about the games industry and then moved into esports and specialised in that, esports has sort of bypassed the wider games industry in some regards. So to see this kind of integration now between the games industry, you're connecting students with people in the industry and giving them experience in esports is great, because I know for a fact a lot of people in esports, they sort of just stumble into it. Some of the pro players we have today didn't know that certain leagues existed in the UK until they met someone in a game, another pro player, said, hey, this guy's pretty good, told their coach about it, and now that player's become a pro. So I guess for you two, more at the pro level, how do you see that sort of esports talent pipeline? A lot has changed in recent years.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I've worked with some of the biggest pros in the world. I've been lucky enough to do that. And when I've delved deeper into conversations and doing their storytelling, some of them were pro athletes in some form or way. So they did compete at a high level and they were used to that. But then they had a major injury. I know a lot of them, pro footballers, broke their leg, laid in bed for, 6 to 9 months, and then jumped on the PC. And next thing you know, they're League of Legends world champion. So it happens across the board, where they found that passion by accident, but more and more are shifting. The balance is changing now, and it is that they are setting out and going, no, I want to be a pro gamer, not a pro sports athlete, because it is a viable path and choice to go down now. And what's being put in place that we're seeing a lot of is academies popping up as well. That's a huge thing that's coming. And if it's starting as early as primary and secondary, that's incredible, because then that natural path is already there, the parents are behind it, and they're ready to support it as well. So, yeah.
You have the unique background of coming from like the sports world. You mentioned sports as well, and I know there are certain people out there. Odie, who's the manager of London Royal Ravens, the Call of Duty UK franchise, he had a similar thing. He had an injury, he wanted to be a pro footballer, and then he stumbled into esports, and then he had his team set up, Dignitas, which got big as esports got big. So, is that something you've seen as well, Giulia? It'd be interesting to know like the similarities between the sports world and the esports world in terms of talent.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about it just then, because obviously in Formula One, I dealt with the F1 sim series that we were doing, which obviously grew in popularity throughout the COVID lockdowns because our racing couldn't go ahead on track. And so our virtual racing got quite big, and we were just talking about the fact that one of the ex-sim drivers now has signed, I believe, with IndyCar. So he's now, managed to transfer all of his skills from the gaming world into a real-life track. So I love to see sort of that overlap, which obviously isn't possible with all titles. But I love to see that. And I think there are similarities in terms of growing these talent pathways. It's just, again, my experience in gaming is a lot shorter than any of yours, but I think sports just has had a little bit more time to have it more sort of structured, and they've also had more investment in it. So what I'm excited from a commercial point of view is seeing brands like Gucci that are now willing to invest into academies because they want to create that authentic connection. I think the gaming audience is very switched on, very savvy. They're not gonna take anything just for the sake of it. So obviously you're seeing a lot of brands now throwing money at the gaming sphere because obviously they realize that the audience is valuable, but actually when they're going to invest in grassroots talent to help that community grow and actually succeed in lots of different areas. It doesn't just have to be on the pro gamer side, it can be coaching, it could be anything. I think that's just really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the sort of gaps and challenges here? What isn't working, or what would you like to see change? Because for me, esports has professionalized an awful lot in recent years. We have academies now, we have official application processes, but you still get people dropping you a direct message. Hey, do you know any jobs going in here, in there? It seems to be, again, esports seems to have bypassed that traditional recruitment world. We do have Hitmarker, which is a good UK-based sort of esports jobs site, but I still think more could be done. What are your views on the panel?
Yeah, I mean, for me, in the pro player side of things, first of all, addressing that, I think one of the things that's missing is that clear structure around salary is a big problem because it's just still a bit the Wild West. We can go and inquire about one team that we want to pick up, and it can be a few $1,000s per player. You can go and inquire about another, and it's 20, 25 plus. And there's very little in the gap between them of their personal branding or social or whatever. It's just because a previous team has paid them that much. So the benchmarks are way off and they're overinflated in some ways, and we can't bring in the brands quick enough to support that. So it does make it unstable at times for pro teams.
And that's per month.
That's per month, yeah. I mean, you can go anything from a couple of thousand up to some of the recent deals that have been done. We've seen just transfer fees going for $1 million, 1.5 in Counter-Strike. So it's getting to traditional sports levels now and beyond. So yeah, it's quite extravagant. But then content creators is now a new buzz and another one that all esports teams, we're putting together our own content creator plan as well, because it gives you the ability to still be in conversation around those games, gaming titles that you're not particularly in, have ambassadors that are very well versed and trained in dealing with an audience and bringing another audience over to you that you maybe didn't have access to, because you can't win all the time because the esports audience is fickle. They do like winners and they will follow the winners to wherever they go. So content creators is a great way to bring over that audience. And again, those fees are set by agents, and that's a new area of business, but it's also a new area and avenue for people to go in to pursue a career in. And they even have teams behind them and people behind them and editors and admins and all of these, roles that are available. Yeah, so it's just whilst it's growing, it's finding its feet and those structures coming into place. I think that's it. And it's for the teams and the professional organizations to set those boundaries and draw the lines in the sand, and then it will have a bit more control in that sense.
Do you have anything to add to that, Giulia and Shahneila? I guess you see, other types of talent as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of that, there's the whole thing around sort of entry pathways, and how do we get in? In the work that I do, I can get kids excited about esports and genuinely thinking about, this might be something that I could pursue, right? But in terms of next steps, where is the clear guidance for what they should do next and how they get in, whether that's a player or whether that's part of the production or whether that's some other side of the whole sector? And I think, there is so that, how do we get in? Where are the entry pathways? What is it? We've heard so often about people stumbling in And that's fine, and it's worked for the industry up to now. But I think if we want to grow the industry significantly and make sizable progress, then it needs to be more than just stumbling in. There needs to be some solid, clear structures. You talked about pay scales, but that also applies to careers and pathways and progression. I can get it, okay, so now I can get in, but then where do I go next? Is this, in terms of that, which aligns to the next point, which is all around perception and parents and the guidance. If my daughter comes to me and wants to do a career, and I think there's risk factor in it, and I'm not sure she's going to be able to be successful in it, I will raise concerns. Genuinely, that's my role as a mother, to do that for my daughters. Any parent would do that. So we are battling perception, and parents will look for these things. They will look at pay scales. They will look at progression routes. They will look at entry points. They will look at the careers guidance, and they will look at the whole structure around it. And I'm not completely sure it's there to a high enough standard for esports, I have to say.
Just on that, there's been some parents of Fortnite pro players. Benji Fishy here in the UK, his mum Anne Fish, she suddenly found herself being a sort of esports manager, helping her son navigating the world of contracts. Well, if you win a tournament in the States, what happens with the tax laws and all of that kind of thing? And she ended up writing a book about it to help other parents because she felt like there was no one guiding her. And again, it's that whole esports thing. It's very community focused. It's very, even at the top level, it still feels a bit grassroots. We're seeing what sticks. We're doing this together, and you're supporting the community. She's done that. But yeah, for you, Giulia, what kind of challenges would you say, or anything you'd like to see different? Because I guess, face it, you have commentators, you have that talent pipeline as well.
Yeah,
there's so much.
There is so much, and I think, again, to draw sort of the looking at traditional sports, and I think some markets do it better than others. Like in the US, and it's kind of what Danny was saying as well, you start to build out your personal brand and your commercial structure, even though you're not a pro yet, but even as a college athlete, they're already teaching you what you should be doing and what you could be looking at. I would like to see more of that, a little bit more of like holistic training and support for gamers, because you need to know how to do your personal branding, what you should be charging, whether it's on social media or anything. You need to know nutrition, what you should be doing there, how many hours should you be gaming, are you gaming too much, having a balanced lifestyle to be at your peak performance. So I would love to see more of that coming in, which I am seeing in like peaks and troughs everywhere, but I'd like it to be a little bit more consistent across the board.
Okay, we've spoken about esports players. They're on the stage. We've mentioned some of the other roles. Are there any other roles? You mentioned content creation, things we should be aware of. Because for me, production. You mentioned tournament admins. That's such an important role. People forget about that. Insomnia Gaming Festival's taking place in a few weeks' time in Birmingham, and there'll be a lot of tournament admins running around the stages, getting things organised. Are there any other sort of areas, other roles we might have missed in esports?
I think one that I found myself, which I studied film and TV production. It was always my dream to go into that and, work for a major production house somewhere like the BBC was always my dream. It's no longer my dream now because I feel like I've accomplished my dreams through esports, through the community, and I've been able to make content and had budgets and do shoots that things I wouldn't have been able to do had I been at the BBC, and been able to get that instant reaction from the audience and hear straight from them. So it's given me that opportunity, and there's many of that opportunity open to people, and esports is the fastest growing one in content, and the content oil, let's call it. Content is king. We hear that saying over and over and over again, and all the brands now are building that into their structure, their budgets, and everyone's trying to outdo each other. And it is getting bigger and bigger, and we're just going to start to see those series rise. Everyone's talking about when's the Netflix series coming. It's going to happen soon. It's on the precipice. We've seen it introduced in small bites and small ways, but the big one will come soon. So, and from production and content, that supplies so many job opportunities. It's such a wide spectrum of job opportunity for people.
Saying Netflix has reminded me of, we already have, Dota and League of Legends have their own animated series on there, which is going to create jobs, right? And production studios and things like that. And for me, I see a lot of similarities with the world of sport as well, with talent. You've got marketing people, commentators, journalists like myself. it's a fascinating place to be. I'm conscious of time. We've got a little bit longer. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll end then. Where do you see the future for esports? I know it's that typical question you get at panels. We've spoken about what you'd like to see change. What do you think is next in the future of esports and talent?
Gosh, it is exciting, and I think regardless of we spoke about the challenges, but I think the challenges are there because this industry is so fresh and so new, and it is being formed and created by the people that love it the most, the people on the ground. And there is a beauty within that. And from there, the success will rise. And that's really, really exciting because it's fresh and it's constant innovation. So I think just that and seeing that on that scale and knowing, I think sort of Danny's right, that we are on the precipice. There is something coming. You can just see it. It's about to turn that corner. And to be honest, I'm not enough of an expert within this sector to be able to make a prediction and paint a picture of what tomorrow will look like. I just know it's going to be exciting.
What you've said is what I usually answer to that question. It's like expect the unexpected, because Fortnite and Valorant are two of the biggest esports shooters out now, and they barely existed 4 or 5 years ago. So I look forward to seeing what the next big game is. Danny, what are your thoughts?
I've thought about this a lot, and I've spoken about it once or twice before, and my mind goes to a creative, wild place in what I'd like to see League of Legends become. If everybody's heard of League of Legends, biggest played game in the world, like you said, there's a series on it. I believe that we are going to head towards, and we're seeing it with many ways in the metaverse and all of this, and we're seeing the integration of Web 3.0, VR. I would like to think that we're probably going to get to a place where it might become more physical for the athletes themselves, where they will control the heroes that are projected onto a map in the stadium, and we will see League of Legends play out in a VR, AR way in the stadium, but people are controlling the champions and everything that's happening within that. And I would love to see that in the future. And I believe that will take the right talent to come through from the young age, imagining that, to create and make that happen. And I think that's the way I see the future of gaming.
I agree. We're waiting for that killer app
Get to that tournament.
in VR. Sorry, Giulia.
No, I mean, definitely would love to see that happen. I think there will also be a further shift in the narrative. I think in the mainstream and in the commercial world that I work in, there's a lot of misconception still about what esports is and what gaming is. People only think about, first-person shooter games and they can't think of anything else, or they will only think about your FIFAs and your Formula Ones. But then you forget about the world of mobile gaming. There's PC, there's console, there's a bit of everything. So I think there will be a further narrative change there. I think the use of technology to identify up-and-coming talent will also continue to progress, and I think that's an advantage on any other sort of industry that needs to source talent. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's to come.
Same here. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for listening. Thanks to my panelists today, and I will pass you over back to Will.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.